Hi, Katie. Thank you again for participating in the second annual AI in Action. This session, I know you're going to talk about how to build lasting AI skills. So the floor is yours and take it away.
Thank you. I'm Katie Jacobson. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology at Loma Nazarene University. And we are currently working on a certificate program for AI literacy. And so what I'm going to be talking about is how we can make a program that we won't have to update every 6 months. And we'll see if that happens, but this is my idea. So when you think of the pace of AI development, what few words or phrases come to your mind? Go ahead and put those in the chat. For me, this is like a fiery frenzy of AI on a treadmill. And so as I've been thinking about how we can make a program that doesn't need to be updated, every month, maybe every 6 months, we will see. I've come up with some ideas on how we can do that. But first, I want to give you a little bit of context about our university. We are a Christian university, and that's not just in name, but that Christian ministry is deeply rooted in our mission. We have approximately 4,000 FTE for our student body that's made up of traditional undergraduates, which is a large part, adult undergraduates, and then also graduate and professional studies. And so I asked the question, how can we design an AI literacy course that's going to remain viable? And that is the big challenge that was set before me. So I started to examine my own AI literacy to develop how I developed. And the things that I came up with for my 3 things that I'm really going to focus on as I design this program is that my choices for media and formatting of course materials, I'm going to make those really easy to update. For example, we will not be using a book. Any book that we chose probably would be outdated very quickly. So I'm going to be curating articles, foundational pieces, and videos. And the next thing I thought is that if I choose topics that remain relevant, even if the details change, I'll have a good foundation for what is covered in the course. And then finally, I plan on designing learning activities that motivate sort of self-directed learning. The program will consist of 3 2-unit courses. And right here you see the first 2 courses that can be taken in either order. And if they take the AI Literacy Responsible and Informed Use course, they will earn a micro-credential. Likewise, if they take the AI Literacy Prompt, Craft, and Applied Automation course, they will also earn a micro-credential. And if they take both of those courses and then they decide to take the 3rd course, which is designing an AI solution, it's like a capstone where they're applying what they've learned in the first 2 courses. If they take all 3, then they're going to earn a certificate, which will go on their transcript. So what about those topics that I said I think will remain relevant? We're thinking things like AI terminology. I want to take one step back and say we're really designing this not for a computer science major, but for any student at PLNU. So and like I said, we have those first 2 courses can be taken in any order. So AI terminology is important. They're going to need to know whatever the latest information is on prompting, or more largely the steerability of an AI platform. They're going to need to understand different types of generative AI. They're going to need to have some way to decide what is the human piece and what is the AI piece and how much autonomy can they give to AI for any given solution. They're going to need to understand the impact of AI on their own learning. They're going to need to evaluate AI outputs. They're going to need to know something about privacy, security, and then the ethical ramifications of AI, including things like an existential threat and faith formation, because the Christian piece of our mission is so important. So I'm figuring that if we have some of these basic topics, that students can go out and find more current information on each of these pieces as we try to extend the life of the course. So here's an example of a learning activity that I plan to use. Any learning activity that asks students to gather and present current information will extend the life of the learning activity. Additionally, I think all students will benefit from research if activities are collaborative and they share that knowledge in IA knowledge bases. One of the very first things that I'm going to ask them to do is something that I did as I became and continue to become more AI literate, which is I'm going to ask them to spend 15 minutes per day spent learning something new about AI. So when I was doing this, I subscribed to a newsletter called Superhuman. And no matter how busy I got, I told myself that I was going to read 15 minutes per day and learn one new thing every day. Now, I chose a newsletter, but in this assignment for students, I'm going to say, choose a podcast or a newsletter, or maybe you want to watch a series of YouTube videos. I want them to have, autonomy over how they choose to learn about AI, but then I'm going to ask them to take that information, upload it into Notebook LM, and keep a sort of resource of all of the things that they're learning, because their brain won't be able to keep it all. And so they'll keep it all in a little AI notes binder, and they should be able to reference that binder later throughout the other two courses for just becoming more AI literate. So that is one activity that I'm asking them to do. In terms of the key takeaways, I'm just basically going to repeat my strategies here, which are going to be to choose media and formatting of course materials that's easy to update. And for me, that's going to look like curating videos that get the students thinking about the topic. And then I'm going to ask them to bring back other relevant pieces that fold into that. And they'll either have assignment based on that, or discussion based on that, or some other type of collaborative group learning activity. And then I plan to cover the topics that are going to remain relevant, even if the details change. And finally, my plan is to just design learning activities that motivate students and that are self-directed learning, because that's what they're going to have to continue doing when they go into the workplace. I did use ChatGPT for my cartoon image, so I'm giving credit there. And I did that presentation way too fast, so fire me your questions and I will jump back over to where I can actually see the chat.
It looks like we have a question from Tammy. Please forgive me if you already said this, but is this face-to-face, online, or hybrid?
Oh, you know what? That was in my notes and I didn't say it. These will start out as 8-week online asynchronous courses, assuming that they are popular. We are also going to convert them into a face-to-face format later. And that is very much strategically about the audiences that we want to attract first and second.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I didn't even think of that as you were talking, but I think that that's probably a good decision. I don't see another question, but sometimes the questions I think take a minute to populate.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea, Katie, of what you think would be the next thing after this? Like, do you plan to expand this into like a bigger program or some other initiative?
That is a great question, and it is really all TBD. As we've looked at some content for the second course, which has more to do with the technical pieces of using AI, because it's called prompt craft and automation. We saw some pieces that looked really good, yet too advanced for what we want this to be able to serve, which is any student at PLNU. And so we have talked about, okay, you get through this certificate, and now what if you want more for your field? Or maybe you're even a computer science student and you want to start developing AI. So it is likely, if this takes off, that will be another step that we take. But again, this is all just, we're developing right now. And I'm the program director, and so I'm trying to set a vision because people keep saying, but you're going to have to update it every 6 months. I'm like, yeah, probably tweaking here and there, but I'm hoping that if I choose topics that are foundational, those both serve the audience that we're teaching, as well as get the discussion going on what are the main things we need to consider around ethics, for example, or faith formation, which is something that will be an extremely important part of this program, because we feel like if PLNU is doing AI literacy, it needs to look different than maybe a non-Christian university doing AI literacy.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully by integrating those more foundational things, it'll lead to more longevity with the content and you won't have to update quite as often. It looks like we have a couple more questions here. How would you recommend your strategy be modified to support K-12 teachers?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. When I think about the K-12 learner and attending some of the other sessions that I have today, I'm very aware of how the foundational skills could be skipped or compromised, or there could be a lack of confidence in younger students in their ability to learn, the basic foundational skills of writing or the basic foundational skills of math. And it seems to me that AI should be pulled in, and the literacy should be pulled in with regard to mostly things like security and privacy and ethical ramifications. I think one of the things that needs to be emphasized for especially younger students, and I will do it in this program as well, is the understanding of how does AI impact learning. And I've actually found a really good article, and I know that more studies are going to be done. So I think we're going to learn a lot more about how it does impact your learning. And not surprisingly, while you're learning a new skill and you're using AI, depends on how you use it, whether or not your productivity is really increased. And it is sort of a trade-off there. You're either learning or you're more productive. And it just kind of sends home the idea that learning takes time and it requires productive struggle. So if I were working on AI literacy with a younger audience, I would be focusing on foundational skills first, helping them understand how they can use AI to help them learn versus shortcut their learning and impede it. So that's part of how I would focus, but I think it would still cover some of the main topics. I'm not sure I would have them making GPTs right away.
Maybe that's a advanced class or something.
Yeah, or just
Not
yeah, it's more something I think that you're doing when you are trying to increase your productivity.
All right. It looks like we have another question here from Matthew. How long would a certificate remain relevant with all of the new changes AI is undergoing?
Oh, I think that's a really good question. And in our program, what I'm going to focus on is ways of thinking about AI. I feel like, and that's the reason this isn't going to be tool-based. The tools are always going to change. But if you're always asking the questions of how secure is this product? What are the terms of use? Are there ethical ramifications for, how is this going to impact productivity? Does this solution match the workflow that we're, trying to design? I think those things are the things that are going to continue to remain relevant. And I plan to point out to students, okay, yes, I posted this article that was written, 9 months ago. What has changed? And pull those pieces of information in and sort of impress on them. If you're working with AI, you're always going to be in research mode. You're always going to be looking for the most current information because it does move at breakneck speed. And so just creating those habits and ways of thinking, I think, is one of the primary ways you can help people be AI literate. It's not a one and done. It's a continual effort.
Absolutely. Matthew says thank you for that answer. Are there any other questions for Katie before we wrap up this session?
Yeah.
We have a few minutes.
And I apologize. I anticipated that I would completely run out of time, and then I just went way too fast.
No worries. Do you have any final thoughts or lasting words or even foresight in the future of where?
No, but you know what? By this time next year, when you guys do AI in action, I would love to report out on where we made our mistakes, because I'm taking Andy Sheen's word with me, and I'm assuming the first one will look like it needs improvement.
Well, nothing is perfect the first time.
Exactly.
Iteration's great. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for sharing. We appreciate you and your time.